On paragraph 8, the next day, on Tuesday, the 28th of October, 2014, I attended the post-mortem at Jamestown Mortuary, and the post-mortem was conducted on the body of an African male with body number 2076/2014.
This is part 3, where Mangena goes over Senzo Meyiwa's body along with the crime scene. So placing the body at the crime scene, so reconstructing what happened the day, or should I say the night, the deceased Senzo Meyiwa was shot. So this is a trigger warning, okay? So if you don't want to hear those details, because it goes into graphic details, we're not going to see the pictures, unfortunately. So he goes into the details of this. So my recommendation, if you are triggered by such conversation, this is not the video for you. You can go back, watch part 1, part 2, and then I'll obviously load part 4 later. So I would skip this part for you, because even for me, this is going to be difficult to edit. My condolences to the Meyiwa family. Justice for Senzo Meyiwa. Go ahead and type justice for Senzo Meyiwa in the comment section down below. So Mangena's job here as a ballistic expert is to take the evidence. So the evidence including what he saw on Senzo Meyiwa's body, okay, what he saw on his body, and also what the house looked like, put the two together and reconstruct the crime scene to say, this is where Senzo was, this is how the bullet moved, and. So these are the details that he's going to break down in the following clip, and let's listen in. I will be back with the rest of my commentary. So make sure you have your pens and papers out there, take some notes, and let's see what you pick up.
The body was, the post-mortem was conducted by Dr. Steenkamp.
It's the pathologist who testified yesterday, is that correct?
That's correct.
So, God, please, my lord, we have requested that these photos not be shown on the screen. Yeah, we make the same request. Yeah.
Photo 14 showing the body of the deceased at the mortuary. This was prior to the post-mortem was conducted.
Sorry, just so that there's clarity. Your clients are aware of these photos? And you've discussed them with your clients? Because when Mr. Mr. Baloyi says we have an agreement that you shouldn't show them to the public.
My lord will remember the same request was made on the previous occasion, and we were given an opportunity for them to view the album. My lord.
So they are aware of what the witness is testifying about. Thanks. Okay.
Right. Photo number 15 showing the upper body of the deceased with a face, so that the person can be identified. And photo 16 showing the body number on a tag which was attached to the leg of it. And prior to paragraph 9, prior to the post-mortem examination, I examined the shirt and the vest worn by the deceased and found the following. Right, 9.1, the possible bullet hole on the chest position of the shirt, and I marked it S1. Right, 9.2, the possible bullet hole at the back side of the shirt, and marked it S2. Now there's a possible bullet hole in the chest, visible position on the chest position of the vest worn by the deceased, which is marked V1. And then possible bullet hole at the back side of the vest of the deceased, marked V2. Right, what I did here, the S is for the shirt. On the shirt, S1 is the entrance, S2 is the exit. And on the vest, V1 is the entrance, and then V2 is the exit. On paragraph 10, I examined the wound sustained by the deceased during post-mortem and found the following. 10.1, the gunshot wound on the chest of the deceased, and marked it B1. The wound has characteristics of a bullet entrance wound.
And what are those characteristics of a bullet entrance wound?
My lord, when I look at this wound sustained, I want to explain it properly so that the court can understand. But before I explain the wound, I want to explain how a firearm works. Okay? When a shot is fired, if you take a firearm, let's say a handgun, a pistol, you cock a firearm, what happens is a round is loaded into the chamber of the firearm.
Okay.
I'll use as dummy cartridge for demonstration. Now this will be in the chamber of the firearm. When you pull the trigger, what happens? The firing pin of the firearm will strike this part of the cartridge, which is called the primer. Now this primer will produce flame that will ignite or burn the propellant powder which is inside the cartridge. Now this powder will start burning. When it starts burning, it turns into gas. And that gas exerts pressure in all directions, but your bullet will give the least resistance, and the bullet will be released from the cartridge case, and it will be pushed into the chamber of the firearm. Right? Normally, the bullet is a little bit bigger in diameter than the barrel of the firearm. So when it's pushed into the barrel, what happens is the bullet will seal the barrel. So the gas that is produced will not pass through the bullet first, or will not escape the muzzle before the bullet. So all the gas that is created by the propellant powder will push the bullet through the barrel. Now inside the barrel, there's grooves which are twisting. In most firearms, most pistols, the twisting of the grooves are to your right-hand side. Right, those grooves will force your bullet to start twisting inside the barrel of the firearm. And what happened is the propellant powder that's inside there, as it started burning from the back, the gas that is produced now at the back will push some of the powder particles which are at the front with the bullets to the front. When a gunshot is fired, or when a gun is fired, that sound comes from the compressed gas that is inside the barrel of the firearm. When the bullet exits, that gas, when it exits the barrel, it creates the sound that we hear when the shot is fired. Right? The gas is very hot when it exits there. And some of the powder particles which are at the front will not be bent. Some of it will be partially bent. So unbent and partially bent propellant powder will also exit through the muzzle of the firearm. In the instances where we do distance determination, we're looking at the unbent and partially bent propellant powder, the spreading of the powder particles around the wound or around the entrance. Now, those powder particles can only travel for a distance of about a meter. That's why you can do distance determination up to a distance of a meter, not more than that. What you see is where you have a condensed or high density of the propellant powder, it shows that the firearm was close to the body. And the more the distance increases, the bigger your pattern of tattooing or stapling. Whereas what I see on this, the wound sustained by the deceased here. Firstly, we look at the t-shirt and the vest. The holes on that t-shirt and vest are not normal holes from a normal bullet that penetrated the body. The tearing of this vest and t-shirt indicates a close range, and it's a very, very close range. What I see here, Malot, is the firearm was in contact with the body of the deceased. And when you speak of contact wound, where the firearm is in contact with the body, we've got a hard contact and a loose contact. Right. In case of a hard contact, what happens is when a shot is fired, all the gas and unbent and partially bent propellant powder will penetrate into the wound, will be found into, if the person has been shot, inside the wound during post-mortem, you will find the propellant powder particles, and the burning will be inside the wound, not outside the wound. In the case of a loose contact, it's where the firearm just touched the body. It's not pressed against the body, but it just touched the body. Now, in this case, it's a loose contact shot, where the firearm only touched the body. Now, what causes the wound to appear like this is because the firearm has touched the body. When a shot is fired, the nose of the bullet, when exiting the barrel, it starts pushing the skin. So because the skin is elastic, it creates a very small gap between the muzzle and the skin. When the bullet penetrates, some of the gases will penetrate with the bullet, then unbent and partially bent propellant powder will also bend or will also penetrate into the wound. And the gas that comes after that will bend the wound, the skin around the wound, and will tear the clothing that the person was wearing. Right. If we look at photo number 23, which is the entrance wound on the chest, there's tearing of the skin around 7 o'clock and also around 3 o'clock. So where the skin has been tearing, that is caused by gas. So the burning that you see underneath and at the top, where the skin tends to be a little bit reddish, that's where the skin was burned by this gas. These are the indications of a loose contact shot. But when you continue with photo 24, showing the position of the exit wound. But on this wound, this exit wound, if we look at the photo 25, it's an irregular, we call it an irregular shaped wound, where the bullet coming from the body pushes the skin. The skin will expand up to a certain point where it cannot expand anymore, and then it bursts, creating this type of wound. Normally, the exit wound will never look the same, or in most cases, not look the same. But on paragraph 11, I also took measures of the wounds from the heel of the and from the heel and found that wound mark B1 on the chest was approximately 1.34 meters from the heel, and 11.2 wound mark B2 at the back was approximately 1.26 from the heel.
And just for record purposes, what is wound mark B1?
Wound mark B1 is the entrance wound on the chest.
And B2?
And then B2 is the exit wound at the back. Photo 28 showing the measurement of wound B2 at the back. Right, if you look at the position of the wounds, as I said, B1 is 1.34 and then B2 is 1.26. It's a downward trajectory. It's not a straight line, it's a downward trajectory. Right, my lord, I did I've checked the crime scene, I've examined the crime scene, now I've examined the body. What I have to do now is to put the body back into the crime scene to determine the position of the body when these wounds were inflicted and in what position was the deceased. In paragraph 13, I said, after examination of the crime scene, the clothing of the deceased and the wound sustained, I could determine that at least 2 shots were fired at the house or at the crime scene.
Well, there's one thing about being a scientist. You really, really cannot argue with science. However, science needs to be proven, though. So he's talking, Mangena is coming to us and telling us about what happened. So he starts his day by going to the pathologist. Why? Because he has to examine Senzo Meyiwa's body. So, in my opinion, okay, Mr. Ballistics, Mr. Mangena, his report is in line with what the pathologist had said in terms of how Senzo was shot, the close contact, and. So here in Mangena's report, he says that Senzo was shot at close range. And not only was he shot at close range, the gun was literally very, very close. So the gun was touching his skin, okay, and pushing down on his skin. And when the shot was fired, the bullet went through the bullet went through, the powder went through, and the gas remained burning the skin at the 3 o'clock, at the 3 o'clock spot, as well as the 7 p.m. spot. And by that, think of the wound as a circle, and then you see the burn marks at the 3 o'clock angle and then also at the 7 p.m. angle. So that shows that this was a close contact shot because of those burn marks. Had it not been a close contact shot, everything, the burning occurs uh, within the wound. So in this case, the burning occurred outside the wound. And then another thing that he confirms, which matches what the pathologist had said, is that the entrance wound was at 1.34 meters, okay, and then the exit wound was at 1.26 meters. Therefore, the entrance wound was higher than the exit wound, therefore meaning it was a downward trajectory. So in this case, look at accused number 3. Look at Senzo Meyiwa. How is it possible that accused number 3, so accused number 3 would have to stretch his hand up to shoot Senzo in the chest, okay? I would also need, it's unfortunate, I would need the height of accused number 3 and the height of Senzo Meyiwa. And then you can see that it would mean what position exactly was the assailant? What position were they in? So Mr. Mangena tells us, Mangena tells us that the trajectory was entered at a higher position and exited at a lower position, but it doesn't tell us where the shooter was, how tall the shooter was, because he's recreating the crime scene. Why didn't he recreate this as well? I mean, I don't know if the movies that I watch have a higher budget, but they will draw and there'll be these laser lines going up and down. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? That's what we see on TV. So my question is, why is Mangena not telling us how tall the assailant was, how tall the shooter was? He's telling us everything about Senzo. And listen, it was devastating to listen. You're hearing that the skin is being burned. Bullet is traveling through his skin. The fatal shot, it's exiting. And then there's also the bullet. There's only 2 bullets. He's confirming that there's only 2 bullets that were fired. 2, 1, 2, not 3. 2 bullets. And he's confirming that one went directly to the floor at a 90-degree angle. So again, what is going on in that position? So he's telling us these angles, but I feel he's not telling us much, in my opinion. Okay, so it was at a 90-degree angle. Recreate the scene. How were they standing to establish that 90-degree angle? Was it a male who was holding the gun? Was it a female? Was it any of the 5 accused? Those are the questions that I'm left still asking myself. And then another thing that he talks about is the tile being hard. If the tile is hard, therefore the bullet will be damaged more. And if the tile is soft, then the bullet is more damaged. Do you see what I mean? Now, This is a question I would ask if I was part of the defense team. How do you know the tile was hard? What is the scale that you measure that on? Did you take a tile from the Spaza house? This is just me wondering, how do we know that that was a soft tile and not a strong tile? Because he's saying it is, but he's not telling us how he proved it. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? So those are some of the things that stood up to me. Let me know some of the things that you caught onto that I might have missed out. And because I don't want to make this video too long, let's continue on, because now he goes into more detail.
I did 13.1.1. I said one shot was fired directly to the floor in an angle of approximately 90 degrees. Now, I looked at the shape of the bullet mark or bullet damage on the tire. It's almost a circular shape. Now, what does that tell me is, if you take a firearm, you fire it at the 90 degrees, your bullet will hit the floor and will hit it on the center part. So meaning your bullet will hit the floor in this thing. And it transfers all the energy that you have to the center part on the floor. So in this instance, what will happen is, that's what we call the effect of the bullet on the target and vice versa, which is called terminal ballistics. Now in this instance is, your bullet, if your bullet is stronger than the tire, your tire will be more damaged than the bullet. In the instance where your bullet is softer than the tire, the more damage will be on your bullet. Right, now from the exhibit, from the crime scene, what I've noticed, and the lead around bullet hole on the tire, it indicates the type of bullet that was used. Right, we have different types of bullets. We have what we call the full metal jacket. This one is called the full metal jacket bullet. And when you look at this one, this is what we call the complete metal jacket. Right, the complete metal jacket, it's more lead, soft lead, covered by a thin layer of copper. And the full metal jacket, it's more strong than so this is basically mostly ammunition that is manufactured by PMP on military ammunition. The police are using the full metal jacket, the defense are using the full metal jacket from PMP. Now with this CMJ, the complete metal jacket, it's mostly used for training, so it's mostly reload ammunition. Right, if you look at the bullet hole on the tile, when I say it's at a 90 degrees, the tile is harder than this soft bullet. So on impact, the tile was, the bullet fragmented. And when you look at that, the lead that you see around it is the lead that's coming from this bullet. And some of the fragments were spread around the area. And I said, if somebody was close to that area, it's more likely that they could have been hit by the fragments from this bullet. Right, the bullet fragment that I have received from the crime scene is this one. It's consistent with the CMJ bullet that was, was deformed on impact on the tire.
Ai, nami mfuna kuyibona phela. Yeah. Okay. Hello.
Now, Colonel, you mentioned that if someone was close to the point of impact on the towel, they would have been hit by the bullet fragment. What about the lead? Would that have any effect?
The lead.
Yes.
The lead that comes is from this.
Just to put that question, you know, objection per se. I just want to.
No, Mr. Minister, keep. You'll clarify.
I just want to find my.
How do we give evidence in court? Wait, how do we give evidence in court? How do we give evidence in court?
No, as I'm saying, I'm taking.
You're cross-examining him. Wait. When you say clarification, you're cross-examining him.
No,
What are you doing?
No.
What are you
Because
doing?
I just want to make assurances that sure that I'm taking the right route. I just want to find out if that is the actual bullet that was fired at the
You
scene.
just said that part of it fragmented because of the force when it hit at a 90-degree angle, where the concomitants that the tile was stronger in build than the bullet because the bullet was softer. It is integrated and fragmented. That's what this witness is saying. Am I quoting you correctly?
You're correct.
I mean, yeah, okay.
The lead, would that have any effect?
The lead will be part of the bullet as it's fragmented. It will also be scattered. That's why I said whoever was within that area, it's more likely that they could have been hit by these fragments from the, and then the fragments also include the lead.
And what is the effect of lead on the skin?
Malo, there's possibility that it could have penetrated the skin, it could have caused, but it will be very small wounds around that area of the legs.
Yes, we proceed.
Right, on paragraph 13.1.2.
Yes, before you proceed, 13.1.1, can you just...
13.1.1.
Yes, can you just refer to the relevant photos?
On the relevant photos,
Yes.
it will be photo 14. No, photo 9 and 10.
Yes, we may proceed.
The lead traces originating from the bullet were visible around the impact mark. Right. 13.1.2. The other shot was fired in the direction of the door at a slightly downward angle. Bullet damage marked A1 on the door had characteristics of an unstable bullet.
Can you just explain what is an unstable bullet?
Right. My lord, as I said, the grooves in the barrel of the firearm will force the bullet to spin. When the bullet exits the firearm or the muzzle of the firearm, it will come out in a spinning movement, so it will be rotating. Now, when you say the bullet is unstable, it's either it will hit an intermediate target, where the target will affect the movement of a bullet. When it exits, like in this instance, I'll say, we look at the position of the deceased, the wound sustained on the chest, and the wound sustained at the back. I'm of the opinion that, I'm saying this is the bullet that perforated the body of the deceased. What happened is, he's in a standing position. The entrance is on the chest at 1.34, and then the exit is at 1.2. Now, if you look at the bullet hole on the door, it's 1.2. Now, if you take the deceased, place him on the crime scene, facing inside with a door behind him. If we close the door, the bullet was supposed to hit the door in a straight angle, and the possibility of it perforating to that side would be there.
Okay.
Now, the irregular shape on the door was caused by a bullet that was not spinning, but probably tumbling, moving on its side. It's either side to side or up and down.
Can you use photo 8 to demonstrate?
Right, the
What you say?
impact point of this bullet, my lord, will be this part of it. So that's the impact point of this bullet. Now, when you look at the bullet, the height of that bullet, you look at the height of the exit wound and the entrance wound. If we take the deceased, put him against the door, where he touched the door, the exit wound will be 1.26. The entrance on the door will be 1.2. So there's a difference of 6 centimeters. Now, to cover that, what we do is you move the deceased further away from the door. If you move it further, you allow the bullet to drop 6 centimeters down. Right. When you look at this part, this shows the bullet did not penetrate at an angle of approximately 19, but at an angle which indicates that when the shot was fired, the door was almost half open. It was not closed, it was half open. Correct. If it hits the door at 90 degrees, it will go through the door. But when you look at it, it hit the door on the side and then created that splinters, got underneath the other part of the wall, pushed them out so that they were separated from the door, and it deflected into the house again. So whatever, it bounced there. After it exited, ricocheting on the door, it bounced on the wall, and it was found there next to the door on the counter, on the Right.
I just want to show you photo 1, 2, 3, I think, of Exhibit D.
What's that?
Photo 1, 2, 3 of
Oh,
Exhibit D.
123. Oh, Exhibit D.
And then 124. Or maybe 125, sorry, maybe 125 is a better-
125.
Yes, 125 for Exhibit D. Can you use that just to demonstrate the point that you've just made now?
And if the door is closed, this bullet will not deflect. But if the door is half open, it deflected there, pushed the wooden, create those splinters, bounced somewhere there, and it fell around it. It makes sense to me. Now, when you look at that bullet recovered there, it's the same type of bullet as the one that hit the door, the floor. It's a CMJ, complete metal jacket. But when you look at this one, it's still intact. The question can be, why is this one intact, that one damaged? But as I explained, this bullet went through the human tissue, the soft tissues, of which reduce the speed and the energy that the bullet has. But the wooden door, it's softer than the bullet, so more damage is on the door than on the bullet. So when it hit the door, it has already lost the stability, and it has lost a lot of energy. So the transferred energy to the door will not be that effective, or the damage to the door, the impact of the door will not be that severe to damage the bullet. So the bullet was recovered, still in a good condition, where it can be used for comparison.
So you can use that photo to illustrate your evidence.
That's the same bullet that we have that was recovered in the crime scene.
127.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
yes, you may proceed.
Sorry. From my understanding, there was no third bullet discharged, according to investigation.
Well, on examination of the
Yeah,
crime scene, I only found 2 shots fired. In the
Yeah,
house,
you're
not three.
you're a scientist. I'm just adumbrating this because they had 1 bullet sounding, they had 2 bullets, they had 3.
No, in the house, there's only 2 shots fired.
You can proceed.
Yeah, the unstableness of the bullet could have been caused as a result of an intermediate target between the firearm and the door, which most probably was the deceased. In 13.2, the deceased sustained only 1 bullet entry wound, which is marked B1, and this wound had the characteristics of a contact shot. There was soot or blackening around the wound caused by the gas originating from the muzzle of the firearm and was found inside the wound also. There was also the bullet exit wound marked B2 at the back with bullet track connecting entrance wound 1 or wound marked B1, indicating the burning of the surrounding of the wound. Paragraph 13.3 is what I've just explained on the height of the bullet on the entrance and the exit and the bullet damage on the door. Right, paragraph 14, taking the aforementioned evidence into context, the best possible and probable explanation of this as follows. The most probable position of the deceased during the infliction of the wounds was initially standing upright in the kitchen area behind the half-closed door, with his back towards the door, but not in contact with it. Bullet perforated the body of him and hit the door behind him. The bullet trajectory, as mentioned in 12.2.1, is slightly downwards. At 14.2, the shooter was most probably in front of the deceased and the firearm was in contact with the deceased's chest. The possibility of altercation or struggle between the deceased and the shooter cannot be ruled out. In paragraph 15, the above-mentioned conclusions were arrived at by means of an examination and processes which required knowledge and skill in certain branches of physics and ballistics. Paragraph 16, I know and understand the contents of this declaration. I have no objection in taking the prescribed oath. I consider the prescribed oath to be binding on my concerns.
Yep. And you confirm the correctness of your affidavit and stand by the contents?
That's correct, Lord, I do.
Of your affidavit, where you mentioned that at least 2 shots were fired in the house. Are you able to perhaps give an indication of the time lapse between the 2 bullets?
My Lord, it's not possible to determine the time lapse of it, but what I could say is these 2 shots is not a double tap where you find So there's a break in between the first shot and the second shot, but I don't know, or I cannot determine how long was the break between the two shots.
Thank you. Can we then proceed to Exhibit X in brackets 13B, your next affidavit? You don't have to read your experience, your qualifications, and the training. You can go straight to the contents as per paragraph 13.
Paragraph 3.
Sorry, the D, you're saying D or B?
B, my lord.
Don't you just stay copy then, because we've got the same problem.
It's a 5-page document.
5-page document. It's in the small.
Yeah, in the X bundle, my lord.
The
Can
X
I
bundle,
just
the bigger
yes.
one. In other
No,
words.
the smaller one.
Okay.
Yes, or if the court can just give me this exhibit that I've just handed up, I'll just.
Yeah. I don't want to because. Thanks.
Yes, may I proceed to read the contents of paragraph 3 in the record?
Right, on paragraph 3 is, on the 13th of November 2014, during the performance of my official duties, I received 2 sealed evidence bags with numbers PA 4.
Colonel will later get to the chain of custody, but in short, whose firearm is this that you are looking at?
Well, I do not know whose firearm is it.
Well, sadly, the ballistic expert cannot tell us whose firearm it is. However, he can tell us the science of how Senzo Meyiwa was allegedly shot. He says possibly, so there's a possibility, he's not 100% certain, so there's a possibility of a struggle between the shooter and the deceased. So for me, that sounds like his evidence is not conclusive. This was not a thorough investigation. He is not affirmative with the findings of his investigation. I would have loved to hear him speak with certainty to say this is what happened, and also to show us the angles and the directions of how the shooting went. So, for example, like I mentioned, and I guess maybe this is an FBI thing, but then he's FBI trained, or maybe this is a South African Police Services budgeting thing. That I would have loved to hear him talk about the laser beam showing that this is the trajectory, this is how the bullet went, and he's saying it is assumed that the door was open. How open was the door? And by the door being open, that's the only way he can explain the trajectory of the bullet in the exit wound being lower, okay, than the entrance wound, and also making an account for the difference in the height at the door, that it's the same bullet that went through the deceased Senzo Meyiwa, okay? The bullet went through the deceased Senzo Meyiwa, hit against the door, did not go through the door because the bullet had lost energy because it went through Senzo Meyiwa's soft tissue, and therefore the bullet lost that speed and impact. So then it bounced back and came back. So the bullet did a U-turn. Okay, it went outside and then it came back and then it landed in between the glasses. Now, you guys already know how I feel about the glass jars, okay, and the bullet. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Now that the ballistic expert has explained how the bullet landed smoothly on the counter with no damage to the glasses. So it's because the bullet didn't have any more energy. It had already hit the door. It had now done a U-turn. The bullet had no energy. Okay. That is the state's explanation from their ballistic expert, who is FBI trained, on why those glasses didn't break, why the bullet is located over there, while the tile is damaged, and how there could have been some splatter from that tile. That explains Zandi's account of events. Now, let me know your thoughts. That's been a whole mouthful, but I definitely want to hear from you. Are you satisfied with the evidence presented by Colonel Mangena, okay, in his affidavit that he just presented? Let me know down below. And what are some questions you would ask if you were part of the defense team, or if you could send questions to the defense to ask Mangena? What are some of those questions that you would go ahead and ask? So let's engage down below in the comment section. You already know I'll be there. Okay, okay. And as well, if you've made it this far in the video, please know you have my heart. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. By subscribing, turn on the notification bell. That's the only way you can know when my next video is going to upload. And of course, you already know, still, there's more videos to break down so that we are all ready. Because tomorrow, class is in session. Colonel Mangena is back on the stand and he is being cross examined by the defense who have been educated, okay, in quotations, by their expert, and has explained everything. If you watch throughout this video, you will notice Ngumalo and Ramasipili are like, I'm not taking much notes here. This is a bit much. Nisi has been at it, okay, at it, writing down, writing down, writing down. But maybe that's because this most impacts his client. But that's it from me today. Thanks so much for watching. If you've made it and watched all the ads, you have my heart. Thanks so much for watching. I will definitely catch you on my next upload.